Good afternoon and welcome to White's Ace Hardware Weekend. And today we've got on Jordan Davis, aka Smoking Pastor. Jordan has recently come on board as our barbecue ambassador for White's Ace Hardware. And one of the things that we want to do with this show is have Jordan and I come on and talk to some of the big barbecue people, brands, maybe barbecue individuals, but talk barbecue over the next several weeks and months ahead. And so we thought the best way to do this was to actually have Jordan sit down and introduce himself. Jordan, I know some people know who you are, but there are still a lot of people in our audience who don't know you as well. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into barbecue.
Yeah, so I was born in Kentucky, grew up in Texas, so kind of weird little transition. But when I was about in elementary school, we moved from Kentucky to Houston, Texas. So lived there for a while and then moved actually back to Kentucky. And then I went to college in Oklahoma. So a little bit of Oklahoma, a little bit of Texas, a little bit of Kentucky, all in my blood. But in Texas, obviously, started really loving barbecue. Found a couple little spots in Texas. We found very quickly, our family, that the little hole in the wall spots are the best ones, and the guys that run out at noon are the guys you want to get in line for. And yes. So that's, I think, where that love came. And then in Oklahoma, same thing. Fell in love with finding the little spots. I fell in love with finding the story in barbecue. I think the barbecue community is one of those things that just has a story. And so one of my favorite spots, even in Oklahoma City, is a little place called Leo's Barbecue. And it started out the guy's dad in a gas station in Oklahoma City, right off of little Martin Luther King, right over by the zoo in Oklahoma, and turned into a big spot. And then they actually got big, hit diners, drive-ins, and drives one time, and actually are known for their strawberry lemonade, strawberry cake, and their brisket is some of the best. And then really hit the pits with ribs and have been known for that. And so I love the stories, how you start, how you got into barbecue. And so then for me, I just started grilling. Obviously started on a grill, started on a little Weber kettle, and then really just not too long ago, really got into how can I learn to cook on an offset? What's it look like to cook on a pellet grill? What's it look like to have all these things? And so then in COVID, really, like everybody else, their story started in COVID. I started popping out videos. And so that's really where the Smoking Pastor project really started. I was looking for a catchy title, and we were sitting in the office, and a bunch of guys were like, "Well, you're a pastor." I'm in my 21st year in kids ministry. They're like, "You're a pastor, and you love to barbecue. What about the Smoking Pastor?" And I'm like, "Well, let's see where this goes." And so we started throwing out videos, and really just started creating a network, a community. I love the barbecue world. I love to cook, but I also love the community. I love to highlight brands. I love to highlight people that love barbecue. So that's kind of where it started.
It's really interesting that it is fascinating that almost anybody, if you ask them, okay, so how did you get into grilling? How did you get into barbecuing? There's always amazing stories. I know in my life, of course, my dad grilled, but it was just like burgers and steaks and some chicken and that sort of thing. My real love of barbecue actually goes back to my grandfather, who grew up in Memphis, Tennessee. And he used to do what we call wheelbarrow ribs. Mm-hmm. Where he would actually pull out the wheelbarrow, fill it up with sand, get it just to the right height, then do charcoal on it, and then have his two little grates in his hot area and his cooler area. And he would sit out there, in his lawn chair all day long, just slow cooking over this, constantly turning and watching it, and just you'd go out there and sit next to him, and he'd just tell you stories. Well, first time I did this, but it always seems like barbecue and cooking outdoors always has a story with it. And that's where a lot of these brands come from. Tell us a little bit about some of the brands that you've talked to and some of that you've had opportunities to meet with and talk to some of these people. All of them have very interesting stories. And I think that's the thing that we all are drawn to with barbecue, is that there's so much story, there's so much life that goes on behind the scenes that is surrounding this whole thing of barbecuing.
Oh, and that's why, honestly, when you brought up this whole idea, Jeff, of let's do these podcasts and just see what happens. And I said, I feel like so many of these brands, there's like a heart behind the brand. There's the brand, you got your Blues Hogs, you got your Killer Hogs, you got your Heath Riles, all these guys that I get to talk to and do business with their marketing teams. You have that, you have their name, but then you have the story of why they got into it. Or my friend Scott Bartlow's Barbecue. He's a great one. This dude's a pastor too. And then all of a sudden he was just at like Kamado Joe headquarters, like showing off their grills, getting to go cook at Memphis in May or doing these things. And it's like, these guys have their brand, but they have a love for barbecue. And we've seen that, especially on like social media platforms over the last really 6 months, 8 months, even more of there's this community in the barbecue community where it's not about like, I know this or you know this. No, it's what can we learn together. I love coming on those guys' shows and talking about like, none of us are experts in anything. We're all learners in everything. And that's where the barbecue community's at. Like we're able to learn from each other. How you started is not how I started. And I'm cooking on a massive, pellet smoker now, or I'm cooking on a drum, and somebody else is saying, hey, I'm cooking on, 1,000 gallon. Well, that's totally different than what I know. Yeah. Just because it's an offset doesn't mean 1,000 gallon versus what I'm cooking on a 250 is totally different. Fire management, how you start your fires, how much charcoal it physically takes to run that smoker. And that's what makes it amazing is like we all get to learn something new every day.
That's one of the things, you hear about the barbecue competitions, and we're going to be talking a little bit later about one that's going to be happening in Noblesville in August. But even at the barbecue competitions, when you walk around them and you listen, it's a friendly competition, but it's more like, hey, what are you doing? Hey, how are you doing this? And there's a lot of learning that does go on because there's so many ways. I mean, you were talking about a barrel. I mean, literally, you can just have a barrel, put a grate over it, throw some charcoal in it, and come up with some very delicious food.
Oh, yeah.
Or you can go to the real expensive end, and you can have a really nice Yoder pellet grill that, brings the smoke exactly the way you want it. There's just so many ways to do barbecue. And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting for me is we have a chance to maybe talk about some of those different ways. Hey, here's some techniques. Here's something for you to try. Yeah. Interview people where we can say, hey, how have you done it? How did you start? And we haven't even gotten into the seasonings and the rubs and the sauces. Yeah. And how diverse those are, and walk into White's Ace Hardware and look at all the rubs and sauces. One of the things that maybe we should encourage people to do, and to see what you think, is take some of those subs and go in, take some photos of it, go do some research and find out the stories behind them. And I think you're going to find that there's a lot of really interesting stories behind them and interesting ways that you can use these different rubs.
Well, and I think that's what's amazing about the barbecue world too, is no matter what price range, what maybe income you have, you can be in barbecue. I love Facebook Marketplace. You can go on. I just sent a guy a video just a minute ago, or a picture, and said, hey, you said you wanted a smoker. Here's a smoker on Facebook Marketplace for $100. $100 you can get in the game. $50 used Weber kettle. You can get, all the time those are laying on the street for free. Yeah. People, you can get in the game of the grilling or barbecue world at a super, cheap way and just start. Like I said, I started with a little bitty, my first smoker was an Oklahoma Joe offset that I picked up on Facebook Marketplace for $100. Now I'm sitting here with a smoker that's thousands of dollars, or a Yoder pellet, or, I'm bad, but I think I have like 7 smokers still. My wife, every time I hit 9, she cuts me off, but get back up to a certain amount. But you can enter that barbecue world for as much as you want to spend or as little you want to spend, and that's what's amazing.
And what's amazing is there's so many different ways to cook. Talk about the different ways that the barbecue world is very diverse. It's not just about what kinds of meats; it's what kinds of techniques, what kinds of ways you're going to cook things. Talk a little bit about the different ways that you have learned to cook, and some of the ways that you're looking forward to it. I mean, there's things like the Brazilian spit. There's all kinds of different ways. I mean, there's people who bury their barbecue in the ground and put leaves over the top of it. This big palm leaves over soaked leaves. Talk a little bit about the diversity of ways that people can cook and have delicious barbecue.
Yeah, so really the sky's the limit, So like I said, we started off on an offset. Then we went into the pellet grill world. We still have both. We're learning a lot of open fire right now. I have a thirst for open fire right now. That's the hot thing right now.
Oh, yeah.
And think about that. That is the cheapest. You throw some cinder blocks on the ground, you throw some coals down, you put some grate down, and you're done. And now, I'm getting learned, like, I really am looking at buying like a Santa Maria. What does that look like? And so really, but you can build one. Literally, you're taking chains down to some kind of device and be able to raise and lower. That is your temperature control. And I think that's one of the go back to some caveman style cooking of really all barbecue is just temperature control. You're controlling the temperature of your fire, of your heat source, and the temperature and control of your meat. That is it. That is the two biggest things in all of barbecue. And so whether you're doing that on open fire or you're doing that on an offset smoker, you're doing it on a pellet smoker, it's still the same technology, the same reality of what is your heat, what is your meat,
And I think one of the things that's also interesting that people don't think about is you can actually, and I know that Traeger's talked about this, and you can, in the summertime when it's warm, you can actually never have to turn on your oven because you can actually bake goods and add a different layer of flavor when you're baking or when you're doing a stew or a soup or something like that. Talk a little bit about what other things that we have that are in our toolbox, so to speak, that people might not be thinking about.
Yeah, well, and two with that, think about like, so for me, if I'm cooking brisket, and most people know, like I cook brisket 22 hours. It's a long cook, 22, 24 hours, but then that rest. But what is crazy on a day like today, Jeff, I'm going to be cooking a little later. You're where I'm at. It's going to be hot today. Next week looks like it's going to be in the hundreds. Yeah. So one, your rest time is so important, but your rest is going to be prolonged, and meat's going to hold hotter when it is super hot out. Even throwing it in a cooler, that cooler is warmed to a certain temperature in the winter, and it's going to be warmed way hotter in the summer. But also the heat of your coals, everything's burning hotter in the summer. And so, you got to play with what your atmosphere is like. But kind of what you're getting to, I think, is a lot of the times, if you're on open fire in the summer, your meat is going to cook fast. Your hamburgers, hot dogs are all going to cook. And really, your food safety tip is already up at that food safety temp at an early stage, especially with hot dogs. People worry about like that food safety. Man, your hot dogs are staying warm just on the table already before you're even throwing them in the fire. It's crazy, but in the summer, that's just happening naturally.
Yeah.
Well,
I know I just went out to, we have blaze grills at the complex where I am at, and that's something that we carry at White's Ace, but that's not something that I actually hadn't had a chance to cook on those. And last night you were talking about it being warm, and I was just cooking up just a couple burgers, and I was like, you light the grill and you kind of wander around and you're thinking about other things, checking your phone or just kind of seeing who's around. But I turned around and I'm like going, wow, temp's already up, we're ready to go, because it was so warm out. And again, also, it's the other thing is just making sure that you keep anything that needs to be cold out of the sun at this time of year. Because stuff spoils very quickly. All your condiments and your other things will spoil very quickly if you're not careful. Do you have any tips on that, by the way, of how people can handle that?
Pre-warm and pre-cool your coolers. If you're going to be resting, you're pre-warming that cooler. You're getting it set to a certain temp, even if it's hotter out than you're setting your temp at. So I use boiling water. So I'll use a kettle, just a tea kettle. Put boiling water in the bottom of my cooler, swish it around a bunch, let it sit for about 5 minutes, pour it out, lay a blanket down in there or some beach towels. And when I go to rest my meat, when I'm going to put a lot of cold food in my cooler, pre-cool your coolers. Really, really, people are bad about throwing a bucket of ice in the bottom of a cooler, then immediately throwing their coleslaw and potato salad, all that stuff in there. Your ice is melting super fast. You're taking something that's maybe been sitting outside for a second, or it's been sitting in a cooler, throw it in something that's been warm for a little bit, and that is not good. You're getting stuff to sweat easy. It's taking your food conditions down really fast. It's real easy to, an hour before you are going to take your cooler out, throw some ice in it, just a little bit in the bottom, and then pour all that water that's evaporating out. That's going to make your ice melt faster. Throw those down. And then the other thing I love to do, get a small block of ice, put it in the bottom of your cooler, and then throw some cubed ice on top. That's going to help you sustain that cool temp for a long period of time. But just remember, your thermometer is your best friend. You can go at White's and pick up a cheap thermometer. You can pick up a high price thermometer. I'm all about the ThermoPros right now, but really be checking the temps of all your pasta salads, your cool temperatures. Make sure that stuff is under the food temps that it needs to be. Most of those containers are clearly marked what temp they need to be served at. Most of them are under 40 degrees. Yeah.
So what's your thought? So you were talking about putting, an ice block on the bottom. Are you talking about one of those nice little blue cooler things that go in the cooler at the bottom, and you just throw them in the freezer? So throw in a little bit of ice, let it cool down a bit, then throw that on the bottom, and then put the ice on top of that, and that'll help keep the ice staying longer. And it keeps stuff. And to be honest, it keeps water out. Sometimes those containers are supposed to be, airtight.
Watertight.
Sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
They're not.
They're not. Yeah. The other thing it does, it really helps, obviously I do about 2,500 pounds of meat a month. So I'm catering, I'm doing a lot of things. It helps keep really sanitary wise. It helps keep those coolers clean. When you start getting a lot of sweat, you're going to get moisture off of all those different liquids, all those different containers. There's bacteria growing on those. It's just good food safety to help do that. I mean, it's just good common sense.
Well, and you were talking about good common sense and safety. I know that we see a lot of people use butcher paper. And do you put butcher paper down on all of the work surfaces around your grill and that too, just to make sure that, and it makes cleanup a lot easier too, doesn't it?
It does. And even when I'm seasoning, if you watch, I do a lot of TikTok lives. People that follow me on TikTok, I do a lot of lives. You'll see when I do. So last weekend, I cleaned 550 chicken legs. And guys were laughing at me because I literally keep rolls of just tablecloth, the plastic tablecloth. That goes on, even though at my kitchen, I have stainless tables. I have very good high-end commercial grade stuff. I still roll all that out. Lay all my chicken, and then you talk about cleanup, especially for seasoning. My wife throws a fit, especially in the winter. If I'm seasoning a lot of meat inside, you roll out that tablecloth, double it up. You're making a big wild mess of seasoning. Seasoning bottles. I have one of my bottles sitting right here. Yeah. No matter how big these holes are, you're going to get overspray or over seasoning. Yeah. But then you're able just to roll that tablecloth up, fold it up from the sides in, roll it up straight down, and all that goes in the trash can, and all your mess is cleaned up in a matter of seconds. But it really does matter of seasoning, but really the food liquid. People laugh at me because I am a guy that does, like I said, 2,500 pounds of meat a month, but chicken and turkey gross me out. They gross me out. I hate it. And so it's real easy just to wad all that up, throw it away, and then you're able to still bleach down your tables and keep everything clean.
One of the things that I know a lot of people understand is when you're resting meat of any kind, you get a lot of juice. And so how do you deal with that when you're trying to keep something, still warm on the side while you're finishing up maybe something else? I mean, is there any tricks or techniques that you use to help with that? Other than have a whole roll of paper towels.
No. We go through some paper towels at our house, but I put down a metal pan in the bottom of every cooler, every Cambro, everything I do. The other thing is I try to keep as much of that juice as I can. So if I'm resting a brisket, I'm wrapping it in butcher paper, I'm laying it in a metal pan, and all that tallow, that's what that is. You're keeping your tallow, you're keeping all that runoff, you're keeping that for later use. That's what I use to season my Blackstone. If you have a Blackstone, you have a Halo, you have any of the brands, that's how I season all that liquid. I pour in a mason jar, let it sit up, it turns white. You can actually keep rendering that down. The best thing you can do is render down all the fat that you keep off any of your trimmings, pour that into a mason jar. I'll actually render that down in a crock pot 2 or 3 times. You want that real white looking. It gets real white. You'll see if you go to a farmer's market, obviously if you're locally and you're in Noblesville or Carmel, Fishers, you see at a lot of the big vendors that they sell their tallow. I buy some of that, but also I keep our own. And that's what I season all my cast iron skillets. That's what I season my Blackstone with. All of that. Then that's what happens in the winter. If it's cold and I don't want to render down tallow, or I buy a brisket that doesn't have a lot of fat, when I wrap my meat, I pour that tallow back on that meat before I wrap it. And that's how I'm able to keep so much tallow. So literally in my house, there's mason jars of tallow all the time.
So do you also do your own, when you cook your chicken, do you keep your bones and do your own
Bone broth.
bone broth and all of that too? Because
Yep.
I think people really miss that. One of the things that can happen is you barbecue your chicken, you put it on the grill, you put it on the smoker or whatever, and then you have all the bones left over. What they don't understand is those bones are absorbing all of that smoke,
juice.
all of that liquid, and then you put those in a crock pot. I do mine, I pressurize mine, and I run it for like 8 hours on pressure, and then go in and stamp it all out, and then filter it through, and you get that beautiful bone broth, almost thick bone broth. It almost doesn't even have to be seasoned, especially if you've done it on the smoker. But then it's got a little bit of smoke to it. So all of your recipes that you use will have that little touch of a authentic smoke and seasoning that comes off of a barbecue chicken.
Yeah, and here's the best thing about that. I'm all about don't introduce something to your meat that you don't want to introduce to it. And the best thing that you can introduce to it is its own liquid. So if you're cooking chicken, you're rendering down those bones, I rehydrate. So one of the things that we can talk about a little bit is we're starting to get into packing. As part of the Smoking Pastor Project, so our nonprofit is what we're trying to do is be the largest producer of fully cooked prepackaged meat for food pantries. That's my goal. That's my heart.
Oh.
That's what I'm trying to do. And so think about how I'm having to package meat for food pantries. We just got done doing 550 pounds of meat for local food pantries. I want to keep as much liquid to rehydrate that meat. So it's going to a consumer. For me, a person that's getting it for free is still a consumer for me. They're a neighbor. I want to pour liquid into every cryovac container or every vacuum seal container that they're getting. And so when they're getting pulled chicken, they're getting liquid poured back into that. So it's going to be the best reheat for them possible.
So you keep basically all of your juices. You keep them separate. What kind of? You said mason jars. Is that how you do it?
We do mason jars. Or now, I'm into giant Cambros now. The big Cambro clear containers. That's what we're into. Mason jars work really well. Any kind of anything that you want, you do want a sealed tight container or sealed tight lid on that. The other great way to do it is we at our church here we do actually Ziploc bags. You can do 3/4 Ziploc bags. If you have a nice chamber vac sealer, you can vacuum seal that liquid, freeze it, and then pull it out when you need to do chicken noodle soup, or you're going to make chicken and dumplings. That's my favorite way to do it. Keep all that dark meat liquid and throw it into some chicken and dumplings. Man, there's nothing better. The other thing that I love to do with tallow or any kind of runoff is cornbread. I'll take, if I'm going to cook for my birthday, if I'm going to actually get a high-end steak or Joe's Butcher Shop or Moody's or any of our local butchers around here give me something to cook that they want for a video for me, and they're giving me some high-end steak, I'm going to keep every bit of that fat. I'm going to render it down. Here's even another trick with that. I love, if I'm cooking, we just did, for our Father's Day giveaway at our church, we cooked some dry-aged tomahawks. Our guys in our church were able to enter a raffle to win those. I took the tomahawk and cooked it on top rack. On the bottom rack, I actually put cornbread and allowed all that dripping to come down from that steak into that cornbread. You don't need butter when you got steak on top. But it's so good if you can put some jalapenos and some cheddar cheese and then allow all that fat to render down into that cornbread. But what I was saying is in the winter, that's a great way. You can season that cast iron skillet, and then you do have a little bit of tallow in the bottom of that cornbread. It helps it not stick, but it also gives it some seasoning that you don't have to use as much butter. Think about it. That's what they did back in the old days on the chuck wagons. They were rendering down that fat, and that's how they seasoned that cornbread.
Well, and you don't have to have a lot of salt and pepper. You don't have a lot of seasoning, and you don't have a lot of anything that might have preservatives in it. That you know, if you're sensitive to those types of things, it's a natural way. Plus, all of those fats are actually, contrary to popular belief in the past, are actually very healthy for you, and more research is proving that out. One of the things you were talking about, exactly. One of the things that you were just talking about is your Smoking Pastor project, and you talked a little bit about it. But give us a little bit more of an overview of exactly what the Smoking Pastor project is, because one of the things that I find interesting about what you do is you're not just a creator. You're not just a guy out there trying to create content in order to be able to gain wealth and fame or whatever. You actually have you're looking to accomplish something deeper. Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. We love to say there's purpose behind every bit of barbecue we do. We love to say we're crafting smiles one bite at a time. So this kind of started just a few years ago. We really started doing some free events, and I realized, I'm not a business guy. I'm a creator. I'm a creator that loves to create content, but I also love to create content with a purpose. And so I love to partner with other nonprofits. We partner with churches. We partner with organizations. Just because I'm a pastor doesn't mean that it's all religious organizations. We partner with a lot of different nonprofits, but also partner with food pantries. And so, like I said, that's one of the things we're doing. We're trying to do disaster relief. We're trying to do these big events. And what I've realized is it is tiring. I work a full-time job. I'm trying to do all these events on the side. And so really the heart behind what we're doing is to really be the largest producer of fully cooked prepackaged meat for food pantries. Really, my goal is not just in the Indianapolis area. My goal is to be statewide, national-wide, eventually down the road. We actually just this week received all of our federal grants and numbers to be able to do all this, to apply for larger grants, to apply for federal grants, not just private grants now. So we are 100% a 501c3 organization, to where we look for donations, but then also everything that we do on social media platforms goes into our nonprofit. So 100% of what we do, both in-house, from every bottle of sauce that's sold at White's Ace Hardware, goes into our nonprofit. Every bottle of seasoning, every video that we do on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, a couple of those platforms we just started being able to monetize from. Every bit of that goes into our nonprofit. None of that goes to pay my kids' food. It goes to feed people in food pantries. So, seasoning with a purpose.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time around people who run food pantries, and one of the things that has always been kind of a missing component of them has been exactly what you're talking about. When you go into a food pantry, you might be able to get some meat, but a lot of times that it's prepackaged and processed type.
Yeah.
But they don't have access to being able to get like fresh cooked barbecue. I don't know, how did they react to you? How did the food pantries react to you when you went to them and then they saw what you were doing?
The problem is the reaction. The demand is so high now. What is happening is it's kind of twofold. I love to explain it this way. One, the quality of stuff that food pantries are getting is horrible. It is a lot of, I call it dog food grade meat. It's a lot of ground, mismatched blends of turkey, of chicken, of beef. We don't know what it is. So you have a quality standpoint. Yeah, it really is. The other problem is, if you will just open your eyes and see the clientele that is coming in our pantries right now. One, there's obviously the immigration standpoint, but two, there's also the social economic standpoint of where they are coming from. They don't have the means to cook the way that food needs to be properly cooked. And so I love to talk about it. They don't know how to cook it. They don't have the means to cook it, or the quality of meat that they are getting doesn't need to be cooked. It can't be cooked. It can't be cooked and be served to families. And so I love to talk about, especially this time of year when summer is in the mix and kids are home, kids don't have the means to pressure cook the meat that really needs to be cooked. And so I love to say, here is us serving prepackaged, fully cooked, shredded chicken, pulled pork, ground beef, that they can literally pop in the microwave and have a good high protein based meal in the matter of seconds.
That's awesome. And I'm assuming that the food pantries are like, this is the best thing we've ever seen happen. One of the, you talked about that you have your nonprofit status. I'm assuming on your website, which we'll put down in the description and have all those links for you. People can make a donation if they want to help with what you're doing on this. But there's other ways that they can help. I know having you actually come and doing barbecue for people and for their event, the proceeds from that actually a lot of that goes to the Smoking Pastor Project. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100% of all donations, all catering, any of that kind of stuff that we do. We've kind of slowed down some of the catering game. One of the biggest ways people can help is go on social media, follow us, share out what we do. Like I said, especially on like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, we have became monetized, and so the more that spreads, the more money that comes into our nonprofit. The other way that helps that a lot of people don't think about is that catches the eye for us of bigger brands. Obviously, I'm looking for larger equipment. I'm looking for that big 1,000-gallon smoker right now. I'm looking for blast chillers. I'm looking for things that, it sounds bad, but the average donor can't fully fund, but a company can. So what I'm trying to do is catch the eye of bigger creators, bigger corporations. So we're trying to find those big, giant companies that can say, hey, here is a large amount of money. Go do what you do, and they can set us up for a long period of time. Like I said, I'm dreaming big. We're getting in the rooms now as a board and saying, how can we dream multi-million-dollar dreams? I mean, that's my dreams right now. And so how do we stay down to earth but still dream those dreams?
Now you've got people that are, or you're on several platforms, so people can follow you.
Yeah.
You said you're on TikTok, you're on Instagram. I'm
Facebook
assuming
and
you're YouTube and Facebook. And are you trying to get into doing a little bit on X here in the future?
Yeah, we are.
It's hard to get all of them going, but I know there's a very thriving barbecue community on X that's growing, but you've also said it's on TikTok. There's a very large community because everybody thinks, okay, it's just kids that are on TikTok. But you were telling me the other day that there's a lot of barbecuers on TikTok also.
Yeah, a lot of barbecues. And what's happened, I think, and what's done well for us is TikTok is one of those platforms that do well on live. And so I go live 2 or 3 times a week, whether I'm cooking for a large event or cooking for a small event. And what's nice on lives, a lot of guys, I'll pop up some of the larger some names that are at White's Ace Hardware on bottles. Those guys will pop in my lives and be up in boxes, and you can ask them questions while I'm cooking live. And that's what is done very well on TikTok, and especially TikTok and Instagram. And the other thing is it's just really helped with getting guys doing stuff together in boxes on lives in TikTok and Instagram, especially, like I said, is you'll have 30 to 40 guys up in boxes all debating different issues of barbecue, and nobody's arguing, everybody's learning. So.
Yeah, well, that's, again, most people are asking, well, why would somebody come on to your show? But that's just, that's the nature of the barbecue community. And once you start into becoming a barbecuer, and even if you're at the lowest level, it seems like it doesn't matter if somebody's been doing this for years and they're really good, or even if they're really famous. If you start asking them questions, they're excited to share their knowledge because they want more people out there barbecuing. Is that, am I reading that correct?
Oh yeah, and they want to share their product with you. Heath Riles just reached out. He sent me some stuff last week. We're getting a brand new toy this week from a company called Fire Disc. Fire Disc is like this new wok style cooker. So I'm getting a Fire Disc this week. These companies are reaching out, sending us stuff, not just because I have this massive following, which I don't. I mean, most of our platforms we're 5,000 or under. We are getting the 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 views in a week or in a month, but it's not because I have this great following. It's they're saying, hey, we love what you're doing. We know you're doing it with a great purpose. We'd love to bless you with something and let you try it. And really, they're just wanting honest reviews. And so that's what's great about the barbecue community too. Everybody's looking for an honest review. Everybody's stuff is different. And so I get a seasoning and it's like, well, I don't like it for this, but man, I want to tell you, it's made for pork. I don't think it'd be great on pork. I love it on chicken. And that's what's awesome about the barbecue world is it's like, hey, it's not that it's bad. It's just maybe not what you intended it for is not what I like it on. But I laugh. There's this new seasoning out that is great on chicken, but I really like it on eggs. And we found the other night, sprinkling it on popcorn is amazing. Like, what do you do? Think outside the box. Thinking outside the box with different kinds of seasoning and sauces is so fun.
One of the other things that we're going to be doing with White's Ace with you is we're going to be doing some special cooks that are going to be coming up. And so you want to stay tuned for those. We're working on the details right now. I think we probably can say that there's probably going to be something that's going to happen around the 4th of July. That's not only going to support the Smoking Pastor Project, but also give you a chance to meet Jordan, ask him questions, get a chance to taste some of the food, the delicious food that he's doing. So we'll have more details like that. But, you know, those are the things also that we're starting to see more and more of is people taking advantage of saying, hey, why don't you come in to our event? An example of that, you're going to be doing this big, huge barbecue event that we mentioned at the beginning that's going to happen in Noblesville. Tell us a little bit about that, and tell us, you're not just going to compete, you're going to be doing some other things also.
Yeah. So every year there's a competition in Noblesville called Noblesville BBQ. It's sponsored by the Rotary Club there in Noblesville, and every year they're able to give thousands and thousands of dollars of scholarships just off this one event to kids in need, to get them into Ivy Tech, into some of these local schools to learn physical trades. And so I love part of what we love doing is partnering with other organizations, and getting a partner with the Rotary Club is part of that. And so we've done that competition a few years. We won ribs a few years ago. Last year we won the People's Choice Award. But this year, something we're doing that's different is part of bringing what the BBQ is and the Smoking Pasture Project together. One of our hearts is obviously feeding people for free. And so we're going to actually be there that morning. Part of what makes that event happen is all of the different barbecue teams that go out and show up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They cook all this food all day to give away and to do for this event. And so we're going to bless those barbecue teams. So we're doing brisket breakfast burritos for these barbecue teams. But we'll also be there all day helping pull off this event. I've got actually guys from TikTok that I have met that are going to be coming in to help me do this event. Usually all these teams come in and they say, hey, we can cook 10 racks of ribs and we can cook 5 pounds of chicken. We're going to bring a lot of TikTok guys together, and we're going to take all the overage, and we're going to help feed the public that day. And so it's going to be an amazing day.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure the date is August 9th. I didn't write it down right in front of me. I'm pretty sure it's August 9th.
We'll actually, in the description, we'll put a link to the event, because it is a great event. And one of the things I love about the event is it's actually like a 5-minute walk from me. But we'll be there. You and I are planning to try to talk to some of these people and get some interviews that maybe we can use on this show later, and show some of the local people. But this is not just a Noblesville or a Hamilton County event. You were saying that this is pretty much, and you're all levels. There's people at all levels that are involved. Tell us a little bit about the people who actually participate in the competition.
Yeah, this is if you're into wanting to do your first competition, this is one of the best entries you can do. There is guys there literally with a Weber kettle. The first year I entered, I was super small. I had 1 drum smoker. That was it. The last year I had to take 9 smokers to pull off what we did. But you can start super small if you want to enter the barbecue competition world, or if you're just curious what it looks like to enter a competition. This is a great way to jump in. But also, it's a great way just to learn more barbecue. You're going to see guys cooking open fire. You're going to see guys cooking on offsets. You're going to see guys there that have trailers. There's guys there way bigger than me that are bringing literally $25,000, $30,000 smokers to this event. It's amazing. It's one of the largest events besides like State Fair, and there's Smoke on the Water down south kind of toward Louisville. Indiana is not typically known for giant barbecue competitions, and this is one of those that is literally a non-sanctioned event, which means kind of if you're in the barbecue world, there's the KCBS, there's some of the big sanctioned events. This is one that you can enter as a backyard Joe or as a full-time barbecue competitor. And so that's what I love, because you're going to see guys cooking on a little bit of everything. You're going to see some beautiful creations. You're going to see some stuff that looks really crazy that's would be able to be entered at like World Food Championship. And you're going to see guys literally take a piece of chicken up and be like, I think this is the best bite in barbecue. I want you to try it. And you have judges that are there from all levels, from pro to a guy off the street that may just know he loves barbecue. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And we're hoping to get someone on from there over the next couple of weeks to give us a little bit more information about that specific event. I think that's a unique event. And one of the things that we're seeing more and more in communities is communities hosting these types of events. And I think in future episodes, we're going to talk about farmers markets and how you can shop for the freshest, best food. I think a lot of people don't understand, if you're looking for meat, there's a lot of farm to home operations that are now available to at all different levels and all different kinds of meat. Also, another thing that I'm excited about talking about in the future is what's going on in high schools. I know that there's several schools that now have culinary classes, and I think some of them have reached out to you to come in and do some guest speaking about barbecue. And that I think that what we're seeing is a movement that is continuing to grow, especially as it gets very much more expensive to go out. There's a lot of people who are looking at this as an option instead of going out to be able to do barbecue. Brings people together, it brings families together, and everybody can enjoy a great meal together and enjoy the whole preparation process together. I'm sure I've seen you do videos where your kids and your wife, everybody's involved in the prepping process and the cleanup process and the whole 9 yards. So it is actually a community and family building thing that goes on with barbecue. And those are some of the things that we want to look at talking about in the future.
Well, and Jeff, that's kind of where I love that the two worlds that we do collide, of the nonprofit world and just the love and passion for barbecue. That's what kind of really started the Smoking Pastor Project. And so we love to talk about how food brings people together, fire brings guys together, especially. And so we love that we get to ask questions. So just the last week of school, we're talking about local, like Carmel High School. I was able to go in and show their culinary class, how do you actually trim a brisket? What does it look like to trim? And then they saw this big pile of fat. Now, what do we do with this? It's not waste. We're going to render this much down, and it's going to be tallow. We're going to take this much down, and we're going to grind, and it's the best hamburger you've ever had in your life because it's brisket, And talk about what does that look like? The other thing that's really happening locally that I don't know if we've even got to talk about, a couple of the local high schools and local colleges now are looking at having competition barbecue teams. We're in talks with two of them right now of what's it look like from us to maybe come, and I don't have the time to fully coach, but I would have the time to come help partner, help sponsor some of these events, especially with a group maybe out of Ivy Tech or a group out of Carmel or Fishers High School. What's it look like for them to go down to Texas and compete against some of the best and bring some of that Texas flair back to Indiana? So it's pretty cool.
It's a lot of people don't understand how, just the outdoor cooking has exploded and changed. And one of the things I'm hoping that we can find out of this is start to introduce people to some of the different things that are going on, some of the different brands. Like you said, we can talk about the different stories. We can also talk about the different products that are available. There's so much available now for barbecuing. We really are, I hate to use the word golden age, but we really are at a golden age where we have people who are willing to teach. We have the means for people to see it. We have the access to quality ingredients and to great rubs and sauces. And it's really an exciting time if you want to get into barbecue. And the great thing about barbecue is start where you're at. Doesn't matter. And get in. You're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have some big wins. But just start getting in and enjoying the whole thing.
Well, I don't think people you local people listen to me. Look at me in the eyes right now. Listen to me. I don't think you realize how blessed we are to have something like White's Ace Hardwares in our community. I was on a TikTok live the other day, and I just happened to be going into White's. I needed to pick up some seasoning that I didn't have at home, and I was like, hey, and I was on live. A couple guys were sitting there, and they're like, where are you at? And I'm like, I'm at my local Ace Hardware, man. This is where it's at. And they're like, will you turn the camera around? And I scanned just the seasoning and sauce aisle at the Carmel store. And they were like, dude, and these guys are in Texas. These guys are in Memphis. These guys are in in Kansas City. And they're like, dude, we have barbecue stores that don't have the amount of variety that you have at a local A store. And they're talking about stores that are only dedicated to barbecue. And they're like, dude, you have a bigger variety in one aisle at a hardware store than we have in a whole store. And so you don't know how lucky we are to have somebody like the White's family that is willing to step up, have the amount of grills and smokers and brands that people are dying to get their hands on locally for us at the tip of our fingers. It's crazy.
We really enjoy having people come in and talk to us and take advantage of our experts. We did a video not too long ago where you were talking about the must-haves as we entered into barbecue season, and at the end of the video you talked about April, who was at the Helpful Hub. There's a Helpful Hub at every single one of our White's Ace, and if you go and you start asking questions about barbecue, what kind of grill I want, hey, I'm looking to cook chicken, what kind of rub should I get or should I start with? any of those questions, we're going to have somebody there that's going to be able to help you.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who work in those stores and even manage those stores who are very passionate about barbecue. And so take advantage of the people who are there. It's different from a box store. You can actually sit down and talk to real folks who do the real deal barbecuing. So Jordan, I'm really excited about what we're looking at over the next few weeks, and I hope people tune back in on a regular basis to find out about the barbecue stuff that we're talking about and learn more about the whole culture of barbecue and about some of the exciting brands that both of us work with on a regular basis. So one of the things I want to leave with is give you a chance to share with people, again, how they can follow you and how they can be involved in the Smoking Pastor Project. All the links he talks about right now are going to be down in the description for you.
Yeah, so our website, smokingpastorproject.com. You can go find out more about what we do. There is a donate button on there. Social media, like I said, follow us. We're at Smoking Pastor on every single platform. Follow us on all those platforms. Pick up our sauce and seasoning. This peachy sauce is flying off the shelves. It's peachy good. We have a plain sauce and we have our seasoning. Pick that up. That not only helps us, that helps White's Ace Hardware, but it also puts money. Like I said, every dollar of every bottle of seasoning, every donation, every amount money we make off social media, all that goes in our nonprofit, and that helps us craft smiles one bite at a time through our Smoking Pastor Project, and that's so much fun. Also, if you see me at the store, ask questions. I am at one of the stores. I guarantee you 2 to 3 times a week, all the time. And I would say that for anybody. A lady didn't know who I was the other day, and she's like, "Do you know if this is any good?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." And guess what? I did not put a bottle of my sauce in her hand. She told me what she was cooking, and I put one of my favorite sauces in her hand. Don't think I'm just going to push my stuff. I put a bottle of Blue Hog's Champion sauce in her hand because she was making ribs, and I love my sauce, but I love Blue Hog on some ribs. So ask questions.
Well, thanks for joining us today. Again, we're going to be back on a regular basis, so tune in. If you're not following us on email, go to our website, whitesacehardware.com. That's whitesacehardware.com. Go down to the link at the bottom of the page and sign up for our email, because we will be starting to put together an email list for those who want to be made aware of what we're doing with these different videos. We'll also follow us on our YouTube page at youtube.com @ White's Ace Indy. It's the @ White's Ace Indy, or you could just look us up, White's Ace Hardware Indy, and you'll be able to find us, and go ahead and subscribe to us so that when we do a premiere for any one of these events, you can be notified about that and come back often so that you can see our videos and Jordan's videos. You know, we are starting to put videos up of Jordan doing specific answers and questions, and we'll be doing more as we do these interviews, giving you some smaller segments on Shorts and other places that you can follow us. So thanks again for joining us, and have a great weekend.